We're broadcasting from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. Elections are almost upon us. The final section of the Southern Expressway was opened yesterday, another 58 kilometers at a cost of 169 billion rupees, according to one newspaper. And the airline scandal, that means the Sri Lankan Airlines scandal, the Airbus chapter of it. There's so many things. The bond scam is still up in the air, and Parliament is nearly to be dissolved, and an election is upon us to discuss various matters. And of course, we mustn't forget 30/1. Geneva is also almost upon us. And to discuss all these matters, we have with us the news editor of the Island newspaper, Mr. Shamindra Ferdinando. Very good morning to you, Shamindra.
Thank you, Mr. Faraz.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. And do remember, this is your program, and we ask the questions that you want answers to. So do send us your questions by SMS only, please. 0772 300 305. Hopefully a card will come up on the screen. But we are in conversation with Mr. Shamindra Ferdinando, news editor of the Island. Now then, Shamindra, what are the chances of real leadership emerging from the next set of parliamentary elections due around the end of April?
For us, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is likely to dissolve the parliament on 2nd of March this year, and the elections in the last week of April. And I don't think the SLPP can secure a two-thirds majority in parliament.
Right.
It's very difficult.
That's the sort of indications you're getting as a journalist.
No, it's difficult for us. It's very extremely difficult because since introduction of PR system in 1989, we had 7 elections, and never the winning party was able to secure a two-thirds. So this time also is very unlikely. But I'm sure the SLPP will win, and the SLPP can obtain simple majority in parliament. And their main objective, I believe, is to do away with the 19th Amendment or to amend it. That will not be possible because they
won't get the two-thirds majority. But who cares about whether the people give them a two-third majority or not? Because, as we see, thanks to a judgment delivered some years before,
by whom?
By Sarat and Silva, and it's permissible now for you to cross over if you are going to serve at the request of the president. So, if you remember before, President Rajapaksa also didn't have a two-thirds in parliament by election, but thanks to several members of the other side, if you like, crossing, he was able to secure his majority or his two-thirds in parliament. Isn't that what's going to happen again?
For us, getting 30 opposition MPs to the government side, I mean the winning side, is not going to be an easy task.
But the economy is in such a dreadful condition, and people who want to make some money will definitely cross over, for they'll be induced.
Are you alleging that honourable members of parliament accept bribes?
There's one thing that Bandula Jayasekara and I agree on these programs, and that is we don't refer to these politicians as honourable. They are politicians, they've got names, and we'll just refer to them as names. I can't say that many of these people, I can't paint everyone with the same brush. I'm sure there are honourable ones, but they are in a significant minority.
I do agree with you, Faraz.
So isn't that what's going to happen? Isn't the first thing, if people are really serious about good governance, one of the first things they must do is to introduce new legislation to preclude people who are elected from one party from crossing over without having a by-election or something like that?
For us, actually, it was part of the 19th Amendment, but the then joint opposition strongly opposed it, and they prevented the inclusion of that particular
You
section.
see, even the two of us are at this. We're blaming people. This is the blame game, but we're only observing as journalists. But isn't that one of the fundamental problems here? And you saw that in the previous government too, where the TNA gave Ranil Wickremesinghe all sorts of support when it appeared that he was being threatened as the leader of the as the prime minister, as a majority party.
I think not only the TNA, I think even the JVP rescued.
They
Mr.
call it, at the
Wickremesinghe's
time
term.
they call it tactical moves and so on. But you know how
It's politics for us. I mean, now if you see the media today, now yesterday I saw on television the SLMC leader Mr. Rauf Hakim.
Yeah.
He declared that the SLMC and the other small political parties and the JVP and the TNA reach a consensus to work together. They have already decided. So from 2010, when they backed General Sarath Fonseca, the UNP, JVP, TNA and the SLMC work together. So that alliance is there.
So how difficult is it to have some real leadership emerge after these next elections? Is it likely? Is it unlikely?
Unlikely for us. You know, if you see the whole country is in a very, if you talk about the economy, it's in crisis. If you take the parliament, it's in turmoil, right? So no party can obtain 2/3 majority. So see, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, 3 months after the last presidential election, he is unable to take oaths as the Minister of Defense because the 19th Amendment has prevented the president from holding the defense portfolio.
Yeah.
Right. So there are serious issues which they have to address as the parliament. I don't think one political party can address these issues. You take Geneva. Now see, very serious allegations have been made against the government of Sri Lanka. So I think there should be some sort of consensus among political parties represented in parliament, because these accusations are made against the armed forces of Sri Lanka, right? US imposed restrictions on the Sri Lankan Army Commander.
Yeah.
Right. Although the government, the foreign ministry summoned the US ambassador, US will never change its decision. Right. Right. So these are real issues the government will have to address, because when you talk about perks and privileges, you will see that all political parties represented in parliament very quickly agree. You know, I mean, their duty-free car permits. You know,
why should the
but on national issues, there's no agreement among them. So that's the whole issue, right?
Okay, but now then, should we just ask you, what is the? There is a process, obviously, when Sri Lanka wants to withdraw from the co-sponsorship of 30/1. What's going to happen?
For us, regardless of what we say, what the government says, the process will continue. You simply cannot make an announcement and say, you know, that we are out of it, right? The process will continue, and we have to prove in Geneva that we did not commit human rights violations.
Right.
So, having announced that we are going to withdraw.
Why should we prove it there when, first of all, we need to have our own investigation here? And I'm sure that 10 years and a bit more after the end of the war, I'm sure our armed forces, our ministry must have looked into this, our intelligence would have looked into it, and found out whether indeed the Sri Lanka, members of the Sri Lanka army or the Sri Lanka's defense forces were culpable of acting outside of internationally accepted norms.
For us, I mean, the UN has accused us of killing 40,000 people.
No.
Right?
The UN hasn't accused us. It is the former Secretary General who ordered a private thing for his...
Faraz,
it is now not part of the United Nations.
You're wrong. The US accuses us of killing 40,000 people. First
the
of
US
all,
or the UN?
UN and US both.
Okay.
Right? Because you will see the US is acting on the allegations made by the UN. Right?
But there is no basis for the 40,000.
There's no basis for us, but when you are accused of something, you will have to counter those allegations. And we have evidence. We have collected evidence. So it's up to the government of Sri Lanka to produce.
Why isn't it being produced then?
You must ask the government. You invite the foreign secretary or the foreign minister, I mean foreign relations minister, and ask them.
When do you think this report was ready?
Which one?
The Sri Lankan's response to the 40,000.
For us, it begins this week.
No. When do you think the report was being compiled?
No, for us, actually, Lord Naseby in the UK Parliament, on the basis of British High Commission dispatches during the war, the British Parliament was told that 40,000 people did not die.
Right.
So it's up to the government of Sri Lanka to produce Lord Naseby's evidence or statement or whatever they call it in Geneva and request Geneva to revisit the case.
Mr. Palitakona was on my program last week on here, and he said that the United Nations, this report in which they're citing this 40,000, was actually a report that Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General, had asked for his advice, for him to be appraised of the situation. It was not something formally asked for by the United Nations. It was to the private office of the Secretary General.
Ban Ki-moon, at the time he appointed that committee, he was the Secretary General of the UN, right? So what do you mean that he has no right, or it was
he has a right, but I'm trying to make the distinction that the UN is one body.
For us, when President Maithripala Sirisena appointed a committee to inquire into the Easter Sunday attacks, that committee was appointed by the President of Sri Lanka, and this President, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa...
But that was not to advise him privately. That was to advise him as the President of the country.
For us,
there's a distinction.
It's an official UN document, right? I think we should realize that it's an official UN document, and there, if you take paragraph 137, they have accused us of killing 40,000 Tamil civilians.
Okay, where's the, you can make allegations, but where's the investigation to find out about that?
They said they conducted an investigation, and they also declared that they cannot reveal the sources until 2031, right? There's a report which the UN system, Geneva, handed over to the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government.
Why until 2031?
That's the thing, that was done deliberately to prevent us from inquiring into the allegations. But for some reason, the previous government did not, the previous government failed to identify or recognize the UN project. Therefore, we simply did not inquire.
What is likely to happen now that we've already told them that we are not going to be, we're going to withdraw from the co-sponsorship?
So, first of all, Faraz, I must tell you, whether we withdraw from the process, make that announcement, the process will continue, right? So, we must realize, we must know, right? We must understand that commander of the Sri Lankan army cannot visit US, right? So, whatever we say, that ban will remain. That will remain, right?
Isn't that against the fundamental notion of the presumption of innocence, which is something that it is in the UN Charter?
For us, you know how the Americans operate.
What, they break the Charter?
Always. I mean...
So then what right have they got to wag the stick at us?
Faraz, they are the world superpower, right? In 2007, when the Americans felt that they should help the former government to destroy the LTT, the Americans provided specific intelligence which helped the Sri Lankan Navy to hunt down LTT ships. They decided, right? They did it. So that's how the Americans operate. Now, can you explain that now? No.
But surely, don't they have in that case, don't they have at least, if nothing else, a moral responsibility to get to the bottom of the actual figure? I mean, one's too much. 40,000 is horrendous. But to be in the interest of everybody...
Faraz, according to the British High Commission, the total number of people killed in during the final assault, 8,000, of which 1/4 LTT cadres who fought in civilian clothes.
How much of 8,000?
1/4.
So about 20%.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but even that's too much. Does the UK government then know the names and ID numbers of these people, 8,000 who are missing? Are they dead, or have they got on a boat and gone to Canada or somewhere like that?
For us, those dispatches were from the British Defence Advisor in Colombo at that time.
Right.
And I'm sure he received information from the Sri Lankan security forces, the LTT, the civilian, the civil society and various sources. So the British, while contributing to the Geneva project against Sri Lanka, they have given us the opportunity to counter their own allegations. So I think the government should bring this UK information before Geneva.
As we've just gone past the halfway mark, let me say this. Send us your questions, because this is your program. 0772 300 305 by SMS, please. And here is one of these several messages that we've already received. Thank you. This is the same story that has been continuing for the past 10 years. Same story, same facts, but no initiative and no action by the government of Sri Lanka to solve it. Previous government started a process, but it seems that this government has stopped all. What is your view on this?
The previous government, I'm sure he is referring to the Yahapalana government. Yahapalana government co-sponsored the Geneva resolution in October 2015, and we are in a mess today because of the signing of that agreement, right? I think Geneva betrayal also contributed to the downfall of the UNP government, UNP-SLP government, right? So it's up to this government, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government, to bring all this information before Geneva and request them to revisit the Geneva resolution.
With the country's economy at peril, is there a possibility, and if there is, how likely is it for sanctions to be imposed on Sri Lanka?
I don't think so, Faraz.
No sanctions? No
sanctions, but they will take action against selected people. They have already imposed travel restrictions on Commander.
Will that affect our trade?
No, I mean, the US may take certain actions because we export our garments to the US. If they want to harass us, they can. They can, I mean, that's
the
obvious.
name of the game is not harassment, it is to encourage accountability and transparency and ultimately democracy.
No, so for us, the US has its own project happening here, right? They want MCC, they want SOFA, they had access already, AXA, right? So the US, I don't think, care about human rights, right? US is the biggest violator of human rights in the world.
So if
right?
they care about so much about
For
our
us,
affairs,
the US and Western powers, they are using accountability as an issue to put pressure on Sri Lanka, right? They don't care about
why
now. I
can't
mean, if
they
you
help
take
us?
Syria, Iraq, Libya, I mean, no human rights there. No, I mean, they when the US and UK wanted to invade Iraq, they alleged that the Iraqis are making, chemical weapons, what they call
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
They didn't find
On
any.
that lie, they invaded that country, killed thousands of people,
Caused billions of dollars worth of damage.
and then the US companies got huge
contracts
contracts.
to
So
build.
it's a game. I mean, it's politics.
So it was a bit of a vitamin B booster to their economy.
So for us, accountability is not an issue for Western powers.
Okay,
Right.
what about the accountability to Sri Lankan Airlines?
For us, I think obviously both the previous government, that's President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, and Yahapalana government responsible, because when Sri Lanka acquired aircraft, there was corruption,
Yeah.
and when they cancelled the deal, there was corruption.
Yeah.
Because
They cancelled,
the minister in charge, Kabir Hashim, he submitted a cabinet paper in which he very clearly pointed out that Air Lanka and the finance ministry at that time acted together and paid $100 million US, something like that.
No, I want to get these figures right, because Mr. Handunetti also...
If you take about Air Lanka deal, this Airbus deal,
Yeah.
both governments equally corrupt.
Yes.
Not only that, if you take, various construction.
But I don't see the secretary, the Treasury Secretary, as the principal shareholder, initiating any action against, initiating any action against the board of directors of Sri Lankan Airlines, because it is up to him actually, because the Treasury Secretary is the shareholder, is the main shareholder, and as a shareholder, he can initiate derivative action against the members of the board for acting sort of not in the proper way.
For us,
there are two governments
the
involved.
line ministry,
Didn't know about it.
yes, and what Kabir Hashim said was that they obtained cabinet approval.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the cancellation of the lease.
Yeah.
What Kabir Hashim said was that Sri Lankan Airlines, through the finance ministry at that time, obtained cabinet approval
Yeah.
after they signed the deal, right? So the previous government,
They even
Jahapal-
bypassed the CCEM.
for us, they are all powerful people. For us, you take the central bank's scam, right? Now, up to now, nothing has happened. No, up to now, and the forensic audits reveal the previous government, the government which was in power from 2010 to 2015,
Yeah.
how it manipulated the Colombo Stock Exchange,
Yeah.
how the EPF funds were robbed, and it also dealt with the scams which involved the central bank between 2015 and 2016.
So
Right.
corruption is a common factor.
Definitely for us. I think the parliament is the most corrupt institution in this country. When I raised this issue with former Justice Minister, the President Council Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, he admitted that the parliament is corrupt. So I think it's up to the parliament.
Do you think all these issues will actually be remembered by the average voter when it comes to voting at the general election? Will they remember the bond scam? Will they remember the pumping and dumping at the stock market, other than the people who actually lost in that exercise? Will the people remember that,
For us, the two major political parties, they have caused so much damage to the national economy, right? If
But they didn't do anything about it,
Faraz, if people are really aware of this situation,
yeah.
I don't think they will vote at the general election. If the people are aware,
but
the voter turnout will be extremely low if people of, if Sri Lankan voters are aware what's really going on in this country, how the politicians, the political parties in power, how they have ruined this country, how they have robbed the taxpayers' money. I am sure voters will not come. They will keep away from the polling booth.
Do you think
if
Sri
they
Lanka,
know?
this is a question from the public, do you think Sri Lanka will, because they have banned, as in the United States, have banned the army commander from travelling there and his family, why can't the government suspend AXA, SOFA and so on, and then negotiate to maintain the status quo?
We can't do that for us.
Why?
That is not possible.
Why?
We cannot deal with America that way.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think we can deal with France or Germany that way. We had to discuss the situation with the Americans, and we had to speak to members of Geneva Human Rights Council. There are 47 countries represented in Geneva. And we must convince them that we did not deliberately commit human rights violations.
Right. On that score, you might be interested, I'm certainly interested in reading up, because it's a bit of a lengthy message.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this out.
Please.
Right. I'm no fan of the Rajapaksas, but to go back to the stance the US is taking, when they do something bad, it is collateral damage. So how dare they question our army? First of all, whatever happened in this country affected our people and our people only, and it is up to us to make reparation. Can the United States tell us why Bush and Blair are living the life of Riley, having taken decisions that have impacted the whole world? See what they have spawned, Taliban, ISIS, etc. So ask them to go hang and charge those two first before they come bleating around here. Bravo, I say bravo. What do you say?
For us, I must tell you, we must know what's going on in this world.
But what do you think about that message? That's coming from a member of the public who've got up early, made their cup of Jones tea or something like that, and watching you.
Faraz, I accept his right to take that stand. I also feel the same way.
Do you?
Certainly, because it's our country.
Is that reflected in your writings?
Yes.
Right.
I do agree that they are treating us very badly. But you cannot deal with this situation by refusing to talk to America. That's the truth. That's how they operate. You know, for us now, remember, we had to convince the Americans. We had to talk to them. Now see, when Modi, I think in 2005, wanted to visit US, Americans refused him visa, right? But as soon as they realized that Modi was going to be the Indian Prime Minister, they lifted that ban, right? So
what are you saying? Shavendra Silva's got to become the Prime Minister before they can withdraw the ban?
No, I did not say that. I'm telling you that we had to take these issues very seriously. And unfortunately, our parliament, for us, our parliament, both political parties, they are playing politics with this issue. Now you take the TNA. The TNA is part of the parliament, right? Now, during the past 10 days, twice, they met the EU, they met American delegation in Colombo and demanded that America put pressure on the government of Sri Lanka to fully implement the Geneva resolution. They are members of the parliament. So before we take on America, I think the SLFP, SLPP, the UNP and the JVP, they should talk to the TNA, because the TNA continues to invite American intervention in Sri Lanka.
Does the Rajapaksas have the acceptability in the international arena to achieve a consensus diplomatically?
Faraj, it's not issue for the Rajapaksas. It's up to the government of Sri Lanka, right? So it's up to the government of Sri Lanka to convince the international community that the Tamils are safe here. That's the whole issue.
How do they do that?
For us,
Do they do that by sending their friends and family to diplomatic missions? Or do they do that by sending career diplomats who know what on earth they're doing and how the system works?
For us, I don't see.
Or is it achieved by entertaining members of the British Parliament and the European Parliament in the bars of the Colombo Hilton, of the London Hilton?
For us, you cannot win over UK or
with a few bottles of champagne.
If we give in to the US demand for SOFA and MCC, they lift the restrictions on the Army Command, and you know that's how they operate.
But to be of real help, can't they just send us a pile of cash and say, pay your debts, get back to zero, and then start there after? They may then find that the people are a bit more appreciative of their meddling.
I don't know, Faraz. I don't know. I think there should be some sort of consensus among political parties on this issue, at least on Geneva, because they agree on everything else, like perks and privileges, additional payments to them, duty-free car permits, foreign trips, various things. Political parties agree. So they can also agree on this issue, because it's a national issue. Geneva is a national issue. How to address the issue of accountability.
Do you think after all these years, Bush and Blair will find their way to some court for misleading the respective publics in their countries?
Never.
Never?
Never.
The Chilcot inquiry, in which was held in Britain, Tony Blair said that he'd do it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, he can say so, because
even though there was no weapons of mass destruction.
For us, they know the system and they know the game, right? So after the invasion of Iraq in 2003, how many countries they invaded? They destroyed several other countries, right? And in fact, the interventions in Libya, 2011, right? That intervention led to the killing of Gaddafi. They killed the president of Libya, right?
Of a sovereign nation.
And at that time, at the time of the US intervention, it was one of the richest countries in the world, Libya. People had everything, and they said, although you had everything, you need democracy, right? So they influenced the people. They caused.
There's not much democracy going around there when we remember that our colleague Julian Assange is being held at a high security prison in Britain, and the potential and the possibility of Mr. Assange's extradition from Britain to the United States is virtually a certainty, and I don't see much democracy and freedom of speech out there.
For us, since the Second World War, how many countries they have invaded? How many?
We've, unfortunately, I've been told here through this thing that we've run out of time. So let's finish off, shall we, with this statement, which is rather appropriate. Please tell the people not to refrain from voting as Shamindra anticipates, but carefully select and vote for honest persons into Parliament, irrespective of party symbol or colour, or even macro principles with ulterior motives, and don't refrain from voting.
Can I say something?
Please do.
For us, it's the people have to vote for people, candidates picked by political parties. So it's up to the political parties to feel suitable, honest, good candidates. And the other issue is the national list. The national list is used by both political parties to accommodate those who had been rejected by the electorate.
Losers.
Losers. So we have an issue there.
We have an issue there. We have several issues which News First will bring to you through its news bulletins and through its discussion programs, but it's all done in the interest of the public. The public interest comes first. There you go. Thank you, Shamindra Ferdinando, and I'll say thank you very much again to you.
Please.
And I'm sorry that we couldn't give you tea this morning, but there you go. That's the way it was on Newsline Live. Take care and have a wonderful week ahead of you, and of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.